All right. Hey everyone. So this is an interview by Slothyy from Steemit. He's the head of Gamers United on is a Steemit group basically where we kind of like promote each other's work and stuff like that. And he recently played Revulsion on a D live stream. Uh, and he wanted to do like a kind of an interview. And I feel it's a little easier for me just to answer all these questions with my voice than it would be to just write them down. So what I'm going to do is read the questions out loud, and from there I will, um, you know, answer them. So Castle, what inspired you to create Revulsion? I just finished playing it for the first time, and it's like nothing I've ever played before. I feel like there are a multitude of games you drew some inspiration from for this FPS. It's also incredibly difficult right from the get-go, even in normal mode. It throws you right into the action and forces you to either adapt quickly or die repeatedly. The adapt quickly or die repeatedly thing is kind of an influence from Dark Souls. Dark Souls is probably the largest overall influence on the design of Revulsion, even if I had kind of moved things around in some respects, design-wise, some systems, some concepts. The game's original iteration was probably closer to Dark Souls than it is now. It's actually now become kind of a new beast in and of itself. But much like with Dark Souls, the world resets whenever you use the bonfire, which is the fast travel points, or basically bonfires. They reset your character health, stats, and all of the enemies. A lot of the levels are large, fairly open, and stuff like that. The current iteration of the game has kind of gone in a new direction, which kind of actually brings up a weird, interesting point. All of the influences on the game, I feel I've actually probably started sitting. I'm probably sitting on what might be a new genre, technically speaking, because I would originally have considered this to have been an arena shooter, and an arena shooter in my mind is really just a boiled down first person shooter with core elements, weapons floating around in the map, finding secrets. Arena shooters are sort of like the the core elements of what made a first person shooter what built a first person shooter before we started doing more complicated things like cinematics and fucking realism, and they were just, here's the monsters, here's the guns, good luck. Which I think in a lot of way has a lot of overlap with the sort of Dark Souls style, but Dark Souls is a more refined variation of that, which is why I would say that this is a sort of more or less a combination of Doom, Dark Souls, and Borderlands, because it also has RPG elements. Dark Souls also has RPG elements as well, so it sits somewhere in the middle between those three, but there's also a lot of other stuff that's going on as well. Um, for example, I utilize a lot of things like a compulsion loop to keep you doing missions over and over again. Now, a compulsion loop means that I put a carrot in front of you, and I say, okay, well, if you really want this fancy thing I just put in front of you, then you're gonna have to do X to get it. And I keep doing that over and over again. That's the intention of giving you blueprints and then giving you the crafting materials and then punishing you for losing said crafting materials. And thus you want to keep playing, you want to keep going, and that's the core addictive loop of the game's core design. A lot of people will probably try to say, oh, it's immoral to have some kind of like, well, we don't need to go into that, but a compulsion loop in and of itself, I don't find to be a moral quandary in any respect. It's just I am utilizing those kinds of tricks, and I would say that those kinds of tricks are essentially just modern game design because we've figured out how as a science of game design, we have figured out how to press those buttons in the human mind all the more effectively than we have in the past, making this making this a modernized version of Doom 2 and Quake combined with Dark Souls, which is really just a modernized version of Doom 2 and Quake, with maybe elements sort of mixed in from like Diablo or like it just spreads out from there because there's just so many different things going on at once. And well, anyway, yeah, the forcing you to adapt quickly or die is very much a part of the that aspect. I mean, on a side note, like games are meant to be played, kind of a thing. I don't know if you've seen the movie Ready Player One. That was kind of a neat thing that I enjoyed about that movie was the point that games are meant to be played, and if the game isn't challenging, then you don't really have to play it. How long did it take you to create the game? When did you first release it, and was it a challenge to get listed on the Steam platform? It was relatively easy to get listed on this Steam platform. I'm actually pretty impressed. A little bit of complexity, but nothing too difficult. How long did it take to create the game? Well, the game's not done yet, but I'd say that uh, I'm probably around 8 months, maybe 9 months, 8 months, something like that, into the development of this game. And this doesn't include my previous attempts at creating games utilizing the paradigm that is the Unreal 4 engine, which is the blueprint design paradigm that so many have shrugged off, I believe, a little too hastily in the past. To me, anytime you can create a platform that incorporates a great deal of creativity as a grassroots element and provides very little upfront cost, you are playing with innovation. That is the seedbed soil of such. Anyway, um, yeah, I'm probably looking at about 8 months, but I've been toying around with the Unreal 4 engine for at least a couple of years. The Revulsion game itself will probably take another 3 months before I get it out of early access. After playing Revulsion, it's completely changed my perception about trying new games. Usually get stuck on a game or two for months, years on end, MMOs, much, but now want to suddenly try loads of other games. Did you ever think that Revulsion would have this sort of impact on others, and especially as an indie developer versus the normal mainstream gaming audience? Anytime somebody makes a new game, they're making the argument that you should try new games. But I mean, outside of that, I'm somewhat agnostic on this, as I'm not making the argument that you should try new games as a whole. I'm making the argument that you should try my game. Me, me, me. This is a me, me, me situation. Look at me, look at me, look what I'm doing. I'm doing this. I mean, vanity aside, or poking lighthearted fun at what would be. You're so vain, but you have to be in this environment, and you have to be kind of crazy as well. You have to actually be crazy, or at least willing to shell out money for advertising, which is something that I'm going to have to explore. But uh, I'm hoping that the only effect that I have on others is that you should play my game, especially as an indie developer versus the normal mainstream gaming audience. Hmm, I don't know. Why did you choose the name Revulsion? Is there a backstory or specific reason? Yes, you're in the mirror animus. you're trapped in the Mirror Animus, and I can go into more about it, but actually it's probably best that I shut up talking about the story. When I'm in the final polish phase, which which I'm gonna get this within the next 3 months. All right, there'll be text, there'll be sort of hints and details about what the story of the game actually is, and the game's storyline will be done in such a way where if you're not looking for it, you won't see it. You'll probably just be killing monsters and grinding and never even really know what the story actually was. So it's going to be one of those kinds of things where you have to be actively searching for uh, the story, which is also, by the way, an aspect of the Dark Souls storytelling that I find pretty interesting. I see that you're working on Revulsion nonstop. Yep, release releasing updates, posts on Steemit, informing your fans, customers about upcoming changes and possible ideas. Is Revulsion a passion project for you, or do you see it in becoming something much larger and long term? Well, it's both a passion project, and I mean, I don't know how much larger it can become long term. It really depends on how many people's attention is focused on me for creating the game. If there's no interest, then it probably won't continue its life for very much longer. It's bound to the mortal coils of the attention-seeking habits of posting online. Uh, so I don't know how much larger it will go, but I view it from the perspective of a passion project, which means that the game as a whole is very is a very big deal in my opinion. At least, at the very least, for me, my it proves that I can do it. I mean, just in and of itself, like uh, releasing a game of this size, of this complexity, on my own, mostly on my own, it's unheard of. Um, it's very rare. I'll get to be up there, whether people want to admit it or not, or whether anyone actually does turn their heads to look and see what happened. It doesn't matter because I've done something at that point. I mean, I'm assuming 3 months from now, I get this game out of early access. I've done the impossible. And whether or not anyone wants to acknowledge that is entirely up to them. But it is what it is. I've scratched and clawed, and I've created a game, a first-person shooter with RPG elements, crafting, 70 plus weapons, 14 maps. I've done more than what a team of fucking 10, maybe 20 people would normally do, and that in and of itself, right? I mean, downplay it, say that you didn't like the game. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Still an achievement. Worth at least acknowledgement. And will there be updates, expansions available in the future, or dramatic changes to the game itself? The only possible dramatic change is addition of co-op, being able to play with your friend, maybe 2-player, 3-player co-op at the most. Otherwise, this is pretty much the game. You're looking at it, and I like that because I've actually managed to solidify the design. If I do a Revulsion 2, or if I do take things further, I would probably be going in the direction of a open world survival style game that is meant to feel with the same kind of visceral combat as Revulsion would be pretty interesting in my opinion. Having the RPG elements and everything like that, but then having like these big open worlds with multiplayer and being able to play with 2 or 3 of your friends and like explore and like build a fort or something would be pretty fucking cool. Would be very cool, and I'm also a very big fan of 7 Days to Die, and in my personal opinion, I'd probably be able to add a lot to the genre. The last game that I worked on that was an open world survival game was Subnautica, and I played a pretty big role in the development of the open world survival aspects of Subnautica. Not so much the base building or anything like that. That was around the time when I had left to go to Digital Extremes to work on Warframe. But I had a really big influence on the way the world flowed, the way the loot was placed, and everything like that. Where can people get a copy to get their own copy of Revulsion? It's on Steam Early Access right now, and you can grab it for $14.99. And on that note, if I get the opportunity, I will be considering releasing the game on the EOS platform, as well as maybe Steemit. So I really think that would be pretty good. Sorry, I got distracted for a second there. Any final thoughts on thoughts that you'd like to air out? Perhaps plans for the future? You're planning on releasing another game one day? I think that pretty much covers it. I'll be working on Revulsion for as long as I can, though. But on that note, I kind of want to reign in this genre. In other words, if there are people who are working on first-person shooters in a similar fashion as this, Dusk, Strafe, anything like that, I will probably be seeking those people out if I'm unable to support myself just from my own game development thing, because I kind of want to I want to take this genre and kick its ass, and in order to do that, it might require that I might have to team up with other people, or I might be able to just kick the shit out of it all on my own. Whatever happens, there's going to be an ass kicking. Uh, that can go either way. But with that said, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I'm here to fucking kick some ass and take names. All right, and Revulsion will appear to at first be a simple styled game, um, where it'll appear to be a game that might be like simplistic, because you might look at the graphics and think, oh wow, it's just voxels or whatever, right? Yeah. Erase that from your head right away. The game's not simple. There's a lot going on, and it hopefully I can kind of, I don't know, kind of show that this is just an art style. It is just a means to an end for visuals, and I will probably be making more games that utilize this exact art style. In fact, I'm getting a lot more comfortable with the pixel art and everything like that, and that's what I want to do. So if Revulsion if Revulsion is not successful, then I will probably end up working inevitably on something else in this vein, because it's what I want to do. It's what I want to do. It's what I want. That's the direction I want things to go. So I hope you enjoyed this interview, and uh, well, I'll probably do more interviews in the future, I guess. I don't know. All right, take it easy.